Welcome to Connecting the Dots, the podcast where we share our stories from the battlefield of consulting. Thanks for joining us on this very special Christmas-themed episode. I'm your host, Jolly Johnny Hill.
Hi, I'm Pamela Peppermint Crozier.
Hey, I'm Kareem Candy Cane Jamal.
I'm Phil Feliz Navidad Gambling.
Hey, I'm Bruno Blitzen Beriso.
So today, you're going to get a glimpse into a working session where we discuss how we would approach designing and developing a one-of-a-kind naughty or nice list app for none other than Chris Kringle himself, and how such a simple idea can quickly expand and turn into something way bigger than you initially expect. It's a little unique and probably different from what you'd usually expect from us, but I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. Let's get started. So the basic prompt for the project is that Santa needs help from us, right? Like, yeah, what if we were contracted by Santa to design a naughty or nice app because he's sick of doing it by hand and thinks it could be way more efficient if we had recommendations for him or got it into a mobile app that he could just carry around with him all the time. Maybe, it's like a proof of concept and just starting off, we're pulling in Twitter history data or real-time tweets. To see if kids are being naughty or nice.
Can kids use Twitter?
I mean, I don't think there's an age requirement on Twitter. And Santa still gives presents to adults.
Okay.
If they're not naughty.
That might be an important early requirement.
So does this app have to go through an approval process for 2 weeks?
That's a great question.
Like the App Store? Oh, yeah, 13
like the App Store approval process? Because
Great
if that's the case, we need to ship this on December 1st.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But is he the only user, or is this,
Who's using it?
is this an analytics dashboard for Santa, or are the children logging in, via the app to self-report, and then where's Santa's cloud? Is it AWS? Is it Google?
Well, probably if you're a parent, you can add status for your kids, like, hey, behave, or
Ooh, so there's a watchdog feature where parents can say, all right, I'm gonna tell Santa that you broke my vase.
Exactly.
That's creep right there.
Man.
So are we integrating this with the Santa tracker?
That's
Which
a
one?
V2.
Okay. The NORAD.
Oh, that's your go-to.
That's my go-to Santa tracker.
My go-to is Hey Google. Where's
Because
it?
here's an aside. I wish Google and NORAD would sync up on those two trackers, because
Are they-
Oh, yeah.
Are they
a smart
different?
kid might look up. Yeah, they don't follow the same path. So you might
The
accidentally bring
decoy.
up the wrong one, and then the kid might notice. Might have not quite picked up on that yet. I mean, we picked one.
Well, when's the decoy?
And they believe
on
it.
purpose?
I mean, they believe it is that they're still the age that it is legit. Like, he is traveling.
He's always over Argentina when I look.
There are a lot of nice kids in Argentina. That's why.
In addition to the parents, if we go that route, elves will be looking at it too, right? It's not just Santa looking.
Oh
at
yeah.
it.
So do we need different levels of permission?
Yeah. Like Santa can edit it, but elves can just check off stuff like, hey, this gift is ready.
Does he delegate out monitoring of different parts of the world to different people? So maybe he can't look at all of it at once, and he's got elves in charge of North America and another elf in charge of Europe.
Yeah.
So
And is
now
this-
we got a whole permission hierarchy. Now there's an admin screen.
Now, here's the twist. This is actually a real project, and we need to get this built by December 1st. So I need estimates as well.
I already got the budget from them, so you have to fit into that budget.
So it's a 3-week POC. Oh, but it's a real project. But I have a question. If it's an analytics dashboard for Santa, but he's going to be on the go, it has to be mobile. So it has to be responsive. Or is it it's not, we've decided it's not really an app, or is
No, it
it?
has to be mobile.
Well,
Yeah.
is
So
it
it has to be
real-time?
mobile friendly.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he would know by the time he takes off, right? Doesn't he already have?
Well, but
Has he made
it
his
is.
Is he
determination?
using it to mark off each kid as he delivers the gift?
Well, that's one note we had is it needs to update real time. So if little Timmy gets on Twitter and cusses out his parents on Christmas Eve, Santa needs to know because that kid's not getting an Xbox.
Oh, so he may need a notification.
Oh yeah,
Notification
push notifications.
So alerts and notifications. I mean, that's already 4 screens we're talking.
Can we, well, to cut the scope down, can we do all administrative changes, just direct database?
For V1, maybe.
Who's staying up all night for this?
Sorry, I've got time off around Christmas.
Yeah, that's it. That's another factor. People are taking time off around Christmas time. All good.
So really, if you were to look at forecast, if I'm thinking of this from even staffing this, even before we have all the requirements and who's going to build this, it's if we consider the holiday timing, we're November 1st right now, and we're having our first call. And then for the US, our teams, a lot of the teams tend to take off the week of Thanksgiving, or if not 2 to 3 days around Thanksgiving. So that's a wash. And then unless we put it all on our Tenerife team or Bruno builds the whole thing.
Sure.
And so really we're already at only 3 weeks of November, and we have to get this in Santa's hands by the second week of December. That's tight. Or the first week of December.
Is he using this to just track, or is he actually using this to know what to build? Because
priorities for his toys.
The elves need this list like now, because they can't build everything in like 2 weeks.
Well, let's just assume there's a little bit of Christmas magic in there, and the effort to build the toys has already been put in. The elves have some sort of like divine foreknowledge of what to build. It's more so just like getting everything packaged up and getting ready to go.
Putting like the name tag on it, basically.
Right.
Like
Let's just say, yeah, Santa's not in need of more labor. There's not a labor shortage for the elves right now, so yeah, I think he's good there.
We should be aware of that though, because there might be a labor shortage.
All right, I'll make a note of that under the assumptions.
Yeah.
Or maybe this MVP 1 scope needs to be limited to next year. We could build out the whole thing, but what's a problem he needs to solve right now? And maybe it's that real-time update on the road, integrate with their existing naughty or nice determination, but push out updates to Santa because they're going to check it real time. So, we want to partner with Santa. Expiro builds a lot of business with great partnerships. But we also got to be realistic that maybe this isn't. We can't build out the whole thing this year. So how can we help you now, Santa?
Right. What's the one big win we can get you? Let's just say it's okay. Well, I want to at least get notified of like live Twitter updates or something like that while I'm out.
Because maybe he just needs he needs something he can show to the C-suite. In this case, Mrs. Claus, to get more budget for next year.
That's sweet. No, it is C-suite. Yeah, Claus.
The C-suite.
Yeah.
And this is C-suite.
We probably will need some logic around determining what's a naughty tweet and what's not, right? It's not like that's easy.
Right. Sounds like we might need Graham to consult.
Right.
On how to build the proper model to actually,
Like, are we using NLP?
Well, of course, we got it. Yeah, I mean, we're talking ML, machine learning, right? I'm building a model around.
Yeah. But and so let's talk about real time for a second. What problem are we trying to solve? Like, he's on his flight. Flight, I guess. His sled, is that still considered a flight? I don't know. He's on his journey, and real time someone likes, I guess, what?
Maybe they supported the Grinch.
There you go. And that person gets moved over to the naughty list. Is Santa not going to give them a gift, even though he may be right above their house? Or vice versa. They may have been on the naughty list, and whatever they did, they came onto the nice list, but there's no gift wrapped for that person. Santa didn't
is it like some kind of just-in-time delivery?
Is it, or does it like get cut off right before Santa leaves, and that's the final list?
Or does he have backup gifts? It's like, okay, you're still on the nice list, but that last action took you down from an Xbox to like a bag of candy
or a pair of socks.
A pair of socks, maybe
with coal.
But like, yeah.
Yeah, but I think Bruno's right.
Is the gift list scalable?
And who's determining it? So that's the model, right?
And is it like the calendar year, or is it up to last Christmas, so like the last week of the previous year? What's his range of?
Oh, it's date range by date range, or is it custom range? Because if it's custom, that's more complicated.
Is it your time
visit.
zone?
Since last
Does it visit to visit? That seems like a reasonable.
I think that
like a reasonable cutoff.
He should have already a system running, right? It's manual, of course, but he's keeping track of he's naughty, he's not. So we should start from there.
It's a long paper list.
It's that one that goes like that long paper list. So he has to be able to upload that.
Exactly, that's another point.
a bulk import, yeah.
Bulk import.
Yeah, let's assume it's a CSV. It's already been converted to digital. It's a CSV, but we need to support the CSV upload.
Okay.
Do we need to archive? Like, does he need historic? Does he need to be able to look back at multiple years to see overall trends?
No, this is current time only.
But would it be useful? That sounds like
that's a V2. That's a V2.
Yeah.
Well, probably that's already running, right? What I think is we are just building an extra input to his already working logic of determining who's naughty, who's not. Just to add the real time feed to the pipeline.
For this year, but next year we're converting all of that to full digital.
Where we should probably have like a next phase, determine how to add the real time logic to the already running pipeline that he has.
Well, so does he like the original requirement had Twitter as a replacement for the feed, that really
that's for the MVP. Yeah,
I'm trying to wrap my head around that though.
I feel like there's multiple data feeds. There's the manual, however he's been monitoring people and manually writing it down, but now we're trying to add in more.
So I think in some ways we were treating this as a proof of concept, so that for Christmas 2022 Santa can have all those data feeds. But he wants to know, okay, can you just take Twitter data and prove to me that you can understand when a tweet is naughty or nice, and compile that and create a profile for me, and I'll take a test run on it. Let's just say, maybe it's like, this is a small scale test, like just for Tulsa, Oklahoma. He wants all of the like Twitter history data for Tulsa.
That's like 2 kids.
I like narrowing that scope, Johnny, because Phil and I were going towards a full modernization project.
Right.
And if since we're targeting kids, should it be like TikTok instead?
Oh, totally.
Oof.
Oh man.
Now you're gonna have to use that weird voice, all of that.
Because TikTok is like, okay, sentiment analysis, right? How many people liked their video and how many people disliked it? Hey, that can be a quick gauge on if it's a naughty or nice thing.
Can you dislike on TikTok?
I don't know. Actually, no. I think you can just heart it.
Clearly, we're the wrong market.
You can get data on like how long did they linger over like a certain kind of post, or did they?
That's not necessarily naughty or nice, right? I could put out stuff that enrages people, and that is actually.
I mean, we could run this. We could assume there's a pre-built algorithm out there for sentiment analysis and just run it on that video, and that video will come, or that model will come back with a positive or negative.
So I feel like we have too many inputs, but if we're looking at Twitter history, and we're talking about kids, like, are we looking at kids' social media, or are we relying on the parents? Like, that's what we need to break down. Is it pulling from kids' social media, which is creepy, or is it the parents?
Well, so since kids, like the age limit, I just checked 13 on all of these.
For Twitter?
I guess for all of them.
For all of
13,
them.
I think 13 is like the limit.
I mean, 13, are they really believing?
But then if you're using social media, well, that's a whole other thing. So then maybe that means you have to use a parent's account.
You have to,
because for their reporting of their kid.
But how do you look at parents' Twitter or whatever?
Oh no.
Parents.
No, but you can't use parents' Twitter history to judge a kid.
So we could say
on their kid, right?
We could say the scope is limited to the scope is limited to like Santa wants us to kind of determine the inputs. He just wants us to prove that we can identify.
He threw
and
out
provide
Twitter
real-time.
as like a possibility
Right.
in his huddle internally with the elves, but
Yeah, I mean, I think if you think of it like a letter to Santa, but if it's a parent message to Santa for the digital age, is you go, you DM Santa.
Let's look at how Santa's collecting that information now,
Yeah,
right? How is
you
he
need to know
judging
how
his-
he's doing it now, and then
How
how
is
do
he-
we update
Yeah.
it where we can put
Right.
it together on a dashboard.
Right now, parents aren't self-reporting, or he's not scraping anything. He's looking at the kids themselves, right? So how do we do that in a
but as a
non-creepy manner?
parent, if your kid does something good or bad, would you go to Twitter or Facebook and be like, Johnny like made a big mess in the kitchen again. Look at this picture of this kid. Or, really proud of so-and-so for their good grades, So can we go on those kind of tweets? So a lot of tweets might just be like ignored because it's just nothing to do with the kid. But
Right,
if it's
it
a
needs to
tweet
be
that's determined to be,
auto-filtered.
like, this is about a child, it's about their child. Now the sentiment analysis probably gives you a good indication of like they did something good or bad.
Like if it were me, I would only put good tweets out because that means my kid gets a good gift how bad
if
they
you can
are,
game the
and I don't
system.
have to buy one, right?
Yeah, there needs to be like a sincerity analysis.
Yeah, how trustworthy is the parent?
So we need to figure out, or we need to understand how Santa's doing it now, and then how do we update that for his test for his
Mhm.
POC?
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we've gone through some of the assumptions that we would make, but we need to think through like, okay, how will we manage this kind of project? Pam, you were talking a little bit about like, okay, it needs to be like is a short-term POC kind of a deal.
Well, yeah. So if it's a short-term POC, we would definitely work closely with the client. And what we have done for some of these shorter term POCs, when we're looking at it from an agile standpoint, because we have to get those designs done quickly, we need iterative feedback throughout the whole project. So whether it's iterative feedback on the design, we're not going to have time for any of like large scale user testing or anything like that, but making sure that we have that client involved in either, if not daily stand-ups with this type of time frame, or bi-weekly stand-ups to get that feedback, be able to move quickly on any iterations. And then when we get into development, when we start coding, making sure that we're going down the right path, because we don't want to be completely off the mark since this timeline is so tight. So it's a little bit different for a POC like this rather than a larger project.
Is Santa using this sort of side by side with his manual list? Because if it's a POC, then
he has to be.
We don't want a POC sort of dictating what Santa's going to give and not give for like the millions of kids around the world today. If we
I think we can assume he's like taking the POC and comparing it to the list and seeing the performance and like the time it took to produce and all that kind of like all those factors. I think it's fair to say he has like a whole team that's not able to spend time making toys because they're just like updating the list left and right.
Because like all good software, we're automating what is currently done manually by people. So we're going to replace them to enable them to do better things.
To do more.
Yeah, let's put a good spin on it.
Not to get rid of them, to help them build better toys. But right now, like you said, they're spending a lot of time just keeping track of kids.
But we also need to consider how many stakeholders, right? Phil, like if you're talking about that, like how many stakeholders do we have that will be giving feedback in these demos?
I mean, I guess it's the current team of elves that come up with this list along with Santa.
And the C-suite.
And Mrs. Claus, of course.
Do we also have to, as another product, create a job board for elves after we put them out of work?
No, because we're not putting them out of work. No,
you can teach it to write code. They can maintain the second phase.
That's true.
Oh yeah, they become support.
Yeah. Also, who's providing support the night of, right? Because we're all going to be on time off. So how do we?
That's a good point.
You have to have live support for this type of thing.
We need to have, an SLA in place. We need to know what we have agreed to 24/7, minute by minute.
Yeah, what are the performance metrics? Like, does it have to be like sub-second performance? It's coming in and he's flying very
Requirements.
quickly.
Yeah.
Our requirements are taking longer than the project will.
Well, we need to, these are all questions we get out in the open in front of Santa.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we get him to react and say, okay, let's just do a small POC. Okay, let's cut back here.
We get him to
Okay.
react. He can code. Sweet.
Maybe.
Let's give him the work.
It will at the end of the project.
So
Has
I do
anyone?
think,
Well, actually, has anyone asked Santa that if we have any limitations of technology stack that we can choose from? Are there support elves that are going to need to inherit this?
It's going to be
Is there an
Angular.
Angular shop?
It has.
That's a whole other. That's
I mean,
a whole other discussion now.
yeah, is this staff augmentation or are we coming in and doing everything?
I just want to say one thing. I don't think that we are going to reach the mark for this release. So
Hey, you got to have
We
a little
bet-
bit, believe in a little Christmas magic. Right?
no, but I was thinking that probably what we can do is we can release a POC that is not a final product. It can be just a dashboard. It doesn't have to be the full application, mobile application. So just a dashboard that reports real time data that he can, his team can look alongside the current system. So he can just see how the behavior of the real time feed is compared to the current system. Because running this live in a small amount of time is going to be really problematic. I'm going back to one of your comments, Karim, about this is going to be like the thing that's decide who gets the gift and who's not. So we should be like extra careful with releasing something that is really up to the task.
Maybe we just make it like a checklist, right? It's like real time, it's only the checklist part where as he goes to each house,
He just needs to see naughty or nice.
Yeah.
And check it off. Or I guess he doesn't even need to see the naughty list. He just needs to see the nice list and where to go. And
what does he do with the naughty people?
Yeah.
Well, I thought he gives them coal, right?
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
but all that to say, like the actual deliverable can be pretty simple, but he needs to trust that like the calculations and analytics is all there. So that's kind of getting back to like what we talked about last time with user trust, right, Kareem? Like he needs to know that we built a reliable system and sees it working before he says, okay, yeah, cool. Just give me the names.
That it won't be rolled out on its own at least for another few years. Because if you're affecting that many people, it has to be a phased rollout over time that you have to like build trust with, right? Hey, is this list actually correct?
Right.
Because you can't turn to it as the go-to just right away. So it's something that a part of our plan would be, and then we can talk about that too, is like, hey, here's the phased rollout. Like, here are the milestones we're talking about, right? Year 1 is this, year 2 is this, year 3 is maybe when we start depending on the list more, our app more than the list.
So I think that's what we can do when we talk about after the requirement piece of it. So if we're talking about the assumptions, once we get all those assumptions, as we're looking at the requirements that we've talked about, we would talk about that in project management, saying, okay, this is from your requirements, from what we've gathered, this would be our recommendation on sort of a rollout from what we've gathered and what we have from embracing the constraints that we have for the holidays. That's what our recommendation would be. And then he would, the next rollout could be in July of the next year. So there's more time for testing and whatnot.
Oh, and then
testing.
Yeah.
Do we need to take into account some QA?
Just live in production.
Or okay, good.
I don't always test, but when I do,
it's live.
Oh, for cloud, it has to be Snowflake. Come on.
What's the AWS like the long-term storage one called?
Glacier,
right? Because I'm sure we need to archive all those lists.
Yeah.
I like Glacier. They might as well just call it Iceberg.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know the connotation. Well, hey, that makes me think, like, is this an opportunity to get Santa to go carbon neutral? Why is he giving people coal?
Oh.
Can we give him Can we maybe we can suggest something else, something. And why are you even visiting people that are on the naughty list to begin with? Maybe you could save some fuel.
Just wasting reindeer.
So we can maybe call Santa out like, hey, considering how much this affects you, but then we'll probably get put on the naughty list. So let's not do that.
We will. We're not doing it.
No, but we can help Santa's image, right? It's like, okay, we can help you go carbon neutral and be green. And so here's some ideas.
He'll wear a green suit instead.
Yeah. It is red and green season. I mean, you can wear red or green or both.
Oh, man. Well, we got off track. Well, I guess, we kind of need to circle back if this really is going to be a slim down and we only have so much time, like from project management perspective, how are we going to tackle this if we had such a big scope, and now we're obviously seeing ways we need to kind of pare it down to make this work in the amount of time we have.
I think like from the project management side, it's more of like we've talked through these assumptions and the requirements but from the project management, it's more of how do you get something done? Like there's not that formal approach that you would have, but it is the basic, the basic fundamentals are there, but you just have to pull it tighter from that standpoint. We're still going to have a kickoff. We're still going to have a requirement session, but they'll be tightened up. And we'll be doing more iterative process, right? But we'll still have reviews with the customer and looking at options for different timelines and how are we going to get it out the door and who's going to be hosting, like all of that will all be in our requirements gathering sessions and our technical requirements gathering sessions. But I don't know if we want to dive in really deep into the project management process of it, rather than how do you get something like this done, but keeping key points of that process. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm in some ways it's kind of funny. I feel like this is obviously like a fun little exercise and Christmas special podcast episode, but I feel like I'm also kind of learning new things about myself and how I process these kinds of questions, and how these kinds of questions don't always come up without these more informal discussions that can kind of prompt those kinds of things. I don't know. I'm kind of curious what y'all think.
Well, it's almost like I like that because some of those requirements gathering sessions, I think need, like this meeting right here would be helpful, even, as casual as it is, will be helpful to have this pre-meeting before you even get on some of those technical requirements or the requirements gathering calls in more of a relaxed manner. Because I think that like a lot of times for us, we go from meeting to meeting and we just get on that requirements and like, oh, let me see what I need to figure out from this call, rather than having something more relaxed like this. It's like, oh, what if they told us that we had to shoot it to the moon? You know what I mean? It seems like we're coming up with some really great questions, and we might not always step back in other projects and have those.
Which is where we awkwardly are on some of these meetings where it's like, Phil, Brandon, Dream, do you have any questions? And we're like, I don't know. And then later it's like, oh, you didn't have any good questions. But I know I need that time to digest everything you just told me, like client just told me about what we're doing, to formulate all these questions. And I like that idea of like, okay, we'll huddle.
It's professional prep, right? Not just for us because we're prepared and we can ask the better questions, but it's also respectful of the client's time, because when we're there, we know what we're doing. We're asking the directed questions and not having to have other meetings because we weren't ready for that first one.
Right. But I think that's a key part of our approach that we take, is making sure that we are prepared, that the teams understand the problem, that they've thought about some potential solutions even before we get into those requirement sessions. That way, like thinking about, do we need a data model, or are we running something on AWS, however we're doing it, they have those questions ready. So
it's never as simple as you think is definitely the thing to highlight, of like a seemingly simple app blows up. It can go in many different directions and blow up. And then maybe the one thing that we would want, I don't know if we really captured, is we're also not trying to just spend all your money and just like, whoa, what about this one? But okay, let's get back to something that's like useful and achievable.
let's identify, okay, with the time we have, with the scope we have, with the budget Mrs. Claus has approved, like what are the big wins we can get for you? Oh, okay, let's start with this POC. Let's start with, let's prove the technology. Let's come up with something that makes sense and then
And
go
usable,
from there.
right?
Yeah.
And make sure it's usable. And, to Bruno's point of what he was saying, it's like we don't want to go live with it right away.
Mm.
Or make
Right.
sure that it's actually that he can use it like side by side with what he's doing now.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want a lawsuit from Santa on our hands.
You will never get another gift in your life, Kareem, and
Yeah.
Santa and Christmas will be ruined.
Seriously.
Thanks for connecting with us today. We had a lot of fun putting this episode together and just kind of playing with some of the questions that come up when you're in a more casual setting and talking about what a project may entail. And on that note, if you have a really complex problem that you're currently struggling to solve and would like some help, or you just have thoughts on what we talked about today, or maybe thoughts on what we should talk about next, please feel free to reach out to us at podcast@experoinc.com or on Twitter @experoinc. We'd love to hear from you, and we hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Thanks again for connecting with us.
But we should all have for this one, we should all introduce first name, some Christmas.
I'm Kareem Kringle
thing.
Jamal.
Huh?
I'm like Phil Feliz Navidad gambling.
There you go.
I can't think of one.
I know. I can't think of one.
Oh man. let me
This is
think.
my best meeting all day right here.
I'm glad.
And peppermint crozier.
Ooh.
Ooh,
Do y'all actually want to do this?
we should. We
Okay.
should.
I guess we can record it and then see where that goes.
If
Maybe
it sounds horrible,
that goes
okay.
into the
Ham,
credits.
peppermint.
Okay.
Oh my god,
Pamela peppermint. I don't
Kareem
that's a lot.
Kringle.
That's a mouthful.
know.
Pamela Candy Cane Cruiser? No.
Wow.
Ooh, Kareem Candy Cane might actually be good.
Oh yes. Let's do that. Bruno.
Bruno Rudolph.
Right,
Yeah, I was something.
Bruno
yeah.
the Red-Nosed
Bruno.
Marisa.
Blitzen. Wait, no, Blitzen.
Bruno Blitzen.
That's one of the
Oh.
reindeer. I don't know. That
yeah.
is that just in English though?
What's that?
Like it's one of the reindeer, at least.
One of the
like,
reindeer's names.
Oh, listen.
In,
Okay.
in English though. I
He's
don't
the
know,
fast
that's
one, so
different.
it does match.
Yeah,
All right.
he always delivers.
He always delivers.